The steam rose from the shower stalls at Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, on a bitter February morning in 1945, as Japanese prisoner of war Sergeant Hiroshi Tanaka turned the hot water tap for the first time in 3 years. The scalding water cascaded over shoulders that had known only cold Pacific surf and muddy jungle streams since his deployment to the Solomon Islands. Behind him, fellow prisoners from the 38th Infantry Division stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend that their American captors provided unlimited hot water as a basic human right rather than an impossible luxury. Tanaka had been captured on Bougainville after months of fighting on starvation rations, his unit reduced to boiling tree bark for sustenance, while American forces seemed to possess unlimited supplies of everything. The contrast between his expectations of brutal prisoner treatment and the reality of American abundance would fundamentally challenge every belief he held about enemy character and democratic values. In Japan, hot baths were cherished traditions reserved for special occasions or wealthy households. Most soldiers had grown up with cold water washing. Public bathhouses visited weekly, if families could afford the fees, and military service that provided minimal bathing facilities under the best circumstances. The concept of unlimited hot water available at the turn of a handle seemed to violate natural laws about resource scarcity that governed Japanese understanding of civilized life. What Tanaka and his fellow prisoners were about to discover was not just American industrial capacity, but a systematic approach to human dignity that treated basic comfort as a fundamental right rather than earned privilege. The hot showers were merely the beginning of revelations that would transform enemy soldiers into witnesses to the power of democratic abundance. If you want to discover more incredible stories of how American humanitarian values transformed even the darkest moments of World War II, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Sergeant Hiroshi Tanaka's journey to American captivity began in the hellish conditions of Bougainville, where his unit survived on 200 grams of rice daily while fighting a losing battle against Allied forces that seemed to possess unlimited resources. By the time of his capture in January 1945, Tanaka weighed 89 pounds, having lost nearly 40 pounds since deployment. His last hot meal had been over 6 months earlier. The transport to America aboard a converted Liberty ship provided Tanaka's first glimpse of American abundance that defied Japanese understanding of wartime resource allocation. Fresh water was available without restriction. Medical care exceeded Japanese military hospital standards, and food portions surpassed what Japanese civilians received through rationing systems. American guards treated prisoners with casual humanity that contradicted imperial propaganda about enemy brutality. Camp McCoy stretched across Wisconsin farmland with systematic organization that immediately challenged Japanese assumptions about American efficiency. Heated barracks, electric lighting, and plumbing systems provided comfort levels that exceeded accommodations for Japanese officers in peacetime garrisons. The infrastructure suggested industrial capacity dedicated to prisoner welfare that Japanese military tradition would have considered wasteful luxury. The first hot shower became a transformative experience that transcended physical comfort to encompass psychological revelation about American values and social organization. Unlimited hot water represented systematic attention to human dignity that Japanese prisoners had never experienced, even before the military service imposed harsh living conditions that reduced personal hygiene to survival necessity rather than daily routine. Dr. Robert Chen, the camp's medical officer whose Chinese-American family had fled Japanese occupation, conducted health examinations that revealed systematic malnutrition among Japanese prisoners despite their reputation as elite infantry. Average weight loss of 35 pounds per prisoner reflected supply shortages that had undermined military effectiveness, regardless of individual courage or tactical competence. The bathing facilities at Camp McCoy included individual shower stalls, unlimited soap, clean towels, and hot water systems that operated continuously without apparent concern for fuel costs or mechanical maintenance. Japanese prisoners accustomed to group bathing in cold water found the privacy and abundance almost overwhelming in its implications about American industrial capacity and social values. Personal hygiene supplies provided to prisoners exceeded what many had possessed as civilians in pre-war Japan. Toothbrushes, shaving equipment, and basic toiletries were distributed without charge or restriction, treating personal cleanliness as a basic right rather than earned privilege dependent on military rank or social status. The psychological impact extended beyond individual comfort to fundamental questions about national character and social organization. Why did Americans provide luxury items to enemy prisoners while Japanese civilians faced systematic deprivation? What kind of society possessed such abundance that waste was affordable rather than catastrophic? Medical treatment included systematic delousing, treatment for tropical diseases, and dental care that exceeded Japanese military medical services even during peacetime operations. American military medicine prioritized individual soldier welfare through systematic attention to health maintenance that Japanese medical tradition had never developed. Training and camp procedures included instruction about American expectations for personal hygiene that reflected cultural values, emphasizing individual dignity and social responsibility. Daily bathing was presented not as luxury, but as normal behavior in civilized society that respected both personal and community health. As February 1945 progressed, Japanese prisoners began to understand that hot showers represented not special treatment, but routine American standards for human dignity that would fundamentally challenge their understanding of enemy character. The hot water systems at Camp McCoy operated through mechanical infrastructure that revealed American industrial capabilities beyond Japanese comprehension. Coal-fired boilers provided continuous steam heating for 3,000 prisoners, while automatic pumping systems maintained water pressure that eliminated the rationing restrictions Japanese prisoners had expected based on their own military experience. Maintenance procedures for the camp's bathing facilities employed specialized technicians whose sole responsibility was ensuring prisoner access to hot water, clean facilities, and adequate supplies. American investment in prisoner welfare exceeded resource allocation that Japanese military administration had provided for its own personnel during peacetime operations. The contrast with Japanese military bathing became a constant source of amazement and shame among prisoners who remembered cold water washing from helmets, infrequent access to heated bathhouses, and personal hygiene standards that reflected resource scarcity rather than systematic attention to soldier welfare. American abundance enabled humanitarian treatment that exceeded Japanese peacetime civilian standards. Cultural differences in bathing practices revealed fundamental distinctions between American and Japanese approaches to individual dignity and social organization. Americans emphasized privacy, unlimited resources, and personal choice in hygiene routines, while Japanese tradition stressed communal bathing, resource conservation, and hierarchical access to scarce amenities. The economic implications gradually became apparent as prisoners observed American casual consumption of fuel, water, and maintenance resources for non-essential comfort rather than survival necessity. Hot showers for enemy prisoners represented industrial abundance so complete that humanitarian luxury was affordable rather than strategically costly. Educational programs included instruction about American public health standards that treated systematic cleanliness as community responsibility rather than individual privilege. Prisoners learned about municipal water systems, public sanitation, and social expectations that reflected democratic values emphasizing collective welfare through individual dignity. Personal correspondence from home painted pictures of Japanese civilian conditions that contrasted devastatingly with prisoner treatment in American camps. Families described cold water rationing, fuel shortages for heating, and public bath closures due to resource conservation measures, while prisoners enjoyed unlimited hot water access. The workforce diversity among camp staff amazed prisoners raised on imperial ideology about racial hierarchies. African American technicians maintained sophisticated heating systems, while female administrators supervised prisoner services with professional competence that contradicted Japanese assumptions about American social organization and technical capability. Innovation continued improving camp facilities rather than accepting minimum standards for prisoner accommodation. Engineering improvements enhanced heating efficiency, plumbing modifications increased water pressure, and systematic maintenance prevented equipment failures that would compromise prisoner access to basic services. International law compliance exceeded Geneva Convention requirements through systematic attention to prisoner welfare that reflected American values rather than legal obligations. Hot showers were provided not because treaties demanded comfort, but because democratic society treated human dignity as fundamental right, regardless of enemy status. Quality control procedures ensured consistent hot water availability, systematic facility cleaning, and equipment maintenance that prevented service interruptions. American administrative efficiency applied to prisoner welfare exceeded organizational standards that Japanese military tradition had achieved for its own personnel. The psychological transformation among Japanese prisoners reflected growing comprehension that American abundance wasn't temporary wartime allocation, but systematic social organization that prioritized individual welfare through collective prosperity. Democratic capitalism was proving more humane than authoritarian systems that demanded personal sacrifice for collective ideology. As winter deepened, Japanese prisoners began writing letters home that struggled to describe American treatment in terms that families could understand without undermining morale or contradicting official propaganda about enemy brutality. The hot shower systems at Camp McCoy operated through democratic principles that extended far beyond mechanical infrastructure to encompass social values that Japanese prisoners found difficult to comprehend. Every prisoner received equal access to hot water, regardless of military rank, length of service, or cooperative behavior, reflecting American beliefs about inherent human dignity that transcended wartime animosities. Administrative procedures for shower scheduling, facility maintenance, and supply distribution involved prisoner representatives elected through democratic processes that introduced Japanese POWs to concepts of self-governance and collective decision-making. These experiences would prove transformative for men raised under absolute military hierarchy and imperial authority. The civilian contractors responsible for camp construction and maintenance included immigrants from various backgrounds who had found prosperity through American opportunity. Italian Americans, German Americans, and other ethnic groups worked alongside native-born citizens, demonstrating social integration that contradicted Japanese propaganda about American racial divisions and social instability. Economic discussions with camp administrators revealed the systematic approach to resource allocation that enabled hot water abundance. Municipal utilities, private contractors, and government agencies cooperated to provide services that Japanese centralized planning had never achieved through administrative control or ideological motivation. Technical training programs allowed interested prisoners to learn plumbing, heating, and mechanical systems that supported camp operations. These educational opportunities reflected American values about individual improvement and practical skills that would benefit society regardless of national origin or wartime status. The camp newspaper, written partially by prisoners under minimal supervision, included articles about American public utilities, municipal services, and social infrastructure that provided hot water to millions of citizens as basic service rather than luxury amenity. This information challenged Japanese assumptions about American social organization and economic capability. Religious services conducted by various chaplains emphasized spiritual values that supported systematic attention to human welfare regardless of enemy status. Christian, Buddhist, and secular ethical traditions were accommodated equally, demonstrating religious tolerance that enhanced, rather than compromised, humanitarian treatment. Personal interactions between prisoners and camp staff revealed individual Americans who chose careers in military service, social work, and public administration because of personal values emphasizing human dignity and social responsibility. These encounters contradicted Japanese stereotypes about American materialism and individualistic selfishness. The maintenance schedules for hot water systems reflected American planning that anticipated long-term prisoner accommodation rather than temporary expedient. Equipment replacement, efficiency improvements, and capacity expansion suggested confidence in continued humanitarian treatment that exceeded minimum legal requirements. Cultural exchange programs allowed prisoners to share Japanese bathing traditions with American staff, who expressed genuine interest in learning about foreign customs. These interactions demonstrated mutual respect that transcended wartime conflicts while maintaining appropriate security and discipline. Medical benefits of regular hot bathing included dramatic improvements in prisoner health, reduction of disease transmission, and enhanced morale that contributed to camp stability and cooperative behavior. American investment in prisoner welfare produced practical benefits that exceeded humanitarian motivations. Innovation in camp heating systems included prisoner suggestions for efficiency improvements that were implemented when technically feasible. This collaborative approach to facility management reflected democratic values that encouraged participation rather than requiring passive compliance with administrative decisions. As spring approached, Japanese prisoners began to understand that hot showers represented systematic American advantages in social organization, economic development, and cultural values that would influence post-war global relationships long after military conflicts ended. April 1945. As news of Allied victories in Europe and the Pacific reached Camp McCoy, Japanese prisoners experienced psychological transformation that extended far beyond physical comfort to encompass fundamental reassessment of American character, democratic values, and post-war possibilities for international cooperation based on mutual respect rather than military dominance. Personal letters from families in Japan described conditions that contrasted devastatingly with prisoner treatment in American camps. Japanese civilians faced fuel shortages that eliminated hot bathing entirely, while prisoners enjoyed unlimited hot water that exceeded Japanese peacetime standards. The irony was profound and troubling for men raised to believe in American cruelty and democratic weakness. Educational programs conducted by American instructors and voluntary prisoner participants included classes about American history, democratic government, and social institutions that provided systematic welfare for all citizens regardless of economic status or social background. These lessons challenged Japanese assumptions about the relationship between individual freedom and collective prosperity. The workforce rehabilitation programs allowed qualified prisoners to work in camp maintenance, including plumbing and heating systems that provided hot water for fellow prisoners. This practical experience with American technology and work organization demonstrated efficiency achievements that Japanese industrial tradition had never accomplished through hierarchical control. Language instruction enabled prisoners to communicate directly with American staff members who shared personal stories about their backgrounds, families, and motivations for military service. These conversations revealed individual Americans whose values emphasized service to others rather than personal advancement or material gain. The camp's recreational facilities included heated swimming pools, gymnasiums with hot showers, and recreational areas that demonstrated American commitment to prisoner welfare that exceeded basic survival needs. Physical fitness and mental health were treated as important considerations rather than unnecessary luxuries during wartime resource constraints. Medical research conducted with prisoner volunteers included studies of nutrition, disease prevention, and psychological adaptation that would benefit both American military medicine and post-war Japanese healthcare development. This collaborative approach reflected scientific values that transcended national boundaries and wartime animosities. Cultural performances by prisoners included traditional Japanese music, poetry, and theatrical presentations that American staff attended with genuine appreciation and respect. These events demonstrated mutual cultural interest that contradicted Japanese expectations about American cultural ignorance and racial prejudice. The economic benefits of systematic prisoner care became apparent through reduced disciplinary problems, enhanced cooperation with camp administration, and productive work assignments that contributed to American war production. Humanitarian treatment was proving more effective than coercive control for achieving practical objectives. Democratic participation in camp governance included prisoner committees that addressed grievances, organized recreational activities, and maintained facility cleanliness standards. These experiences introduced Japanese POWs to concepts of representative government and collective responsibility that would influence their post-war political development. International law discussions conducted by camp legal officers educated prisoners about Geneva Convention requirements and American interpretations that exceeded minimum standards through systematic attention to prisoner welfare. This legal framework reflected democratic values that protected individual rights even during wartime conflicts. Personal transformation among Japanese prisoners reflected growing appreciation for American social values that emphasized individual dignity, collective prosperity, and systematic attention to human welfare regardless of national origin or wartime status. Hot showers had become symbols of democratic abundance that authoritarian systems couldn't provide through ideological motivation or administrative control. As summer approached and Japanese defeat became increasingly apparent, prisoners began contemplating post-war reconstruction that would benefit from American humanitarian example rather than resenting democratic values as foreign-imposed weakness. August 15, 1945. Emperor Hirohito's surrender announcement reached Camp McCoy as Japanese prisoners stood under hot showers that had become daily reminders of American values and democratic abundance. The war was ending, but the lessons learned through systematic humanitarian treatment would influence Japanese post-war development for generations to come. Repatriation planning included systematic health restoration for prisoners who had gained average weight of 28 pounds during American captivity through adequate nutrition, medical care, and basic human dignity that exceeded treatment Japanese soldiers had received from their own military administration. Physical transformation reflected deeper changes in understanding about social organization and national values. Personal testimonies from prisoners preparing to return to Japan described American treatment in letters that would influence family understanding of democratic society and humanitarian values. These individual accounts would counter official propaganda about American brutality while demonstrating practical benefits of social systems that prioritized individual welfare alongside collective prosperity. Technical knowledge acquired through camp work assignments included plumbing, heating, and mechanical systems that Japanese prisoners would apply during post-war reconstruction. American training and practical skills reflected democratic values about individual improvement and social contribution that would enhance Japanese recovery efforts. Cultural exchange programs had created lasting friendships between prisoners and American staff members who maintained correspondence after repatriation. These personal relationships would provide foundation for post-war cooperation and mutual understanding that transcended wartime conflicts through shared human experiences. The economic lessons learned through observation of American abundance would influence Japanese industrial development and social policy during Reconstruction years. Systematic attention to worker welfare, public utilities, and social infrastructure demonstrated practical benefits of democratic capitalism that command economy organization had never achieved. Educational materials prepared by camp administrators included information about American democratic institutions, public services, and social values that emphasized individual rights and collective responsibility. This knowledge would contribute to Japanese post-war constitutional development and democratic transition under American occupation guidance. Medical improvements achieved through American treatment included elimination of nutritional diseases, treatment of chronic conditions, and systematic health education that prisoners would share with families and communities during Reconstruction. Public health knowledge gained through humanitarian care would benefit Japanese society long after military conflicts ended. International cooperation demonstrated through prisoner treatment reflected American values about post-war global relationships based on mutual respect rather than military dominance. This humanitarian example would influence Japanese attitudes toward democratic governance and international cooperation during Cold War developments. Innovation in social organization observed through camp administration included systematic approaches to conflict resolution, resource allocation, and collective decision-making that Japanese prisoners would apply to community leadership roles during post-war reconstruction. Democratic participation skills learned through camp governance would enhance Japanese democratic development. Personal transformation among repatriated prisoners included appreciation for American humanitarian values that would influence Japanese understanding of democratic society and international cooperation. Former enemies would become advocates for peaceful relationships and mutual understanding based on shared human dignity rather than military competition. The legacy of hot showers at Camp McCoy represented systematic American advantages in social organization, economic development, and cultural values that had created industrial abundance, enabling humanitarian treatment even of enemy prisoners. These lessons would influence Japanese post-war development toward democratic governance and international cooperation. If this incredible story of how simple human dignity and democratic values transformed enemies into allies inspired you, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales of how humanity triumphed even in history's darkest moments. The steam from those daily hot showers had carried away more than dirt. It had washed away hatred, prejudice, and the barriers between former enemies who discovered shared humanity through American abundance and democratic compassion.